Hello and welcome to day 7 of the San Diego Latino Film Festival and today's Q&A session for the Frontera Filmmakers documentary shorts program. As a reminder, this shorts program is available until midnight today. So if you haven't had a chance to watch it, you can still rent it for the night, and you have 24 hours to finish it once you start the program. If you did already if you already watched it live, as a reminder, this is you through Facebook and YouTube. You can ask questions at any point. So any questions you have, you can comment them, and we'll try to get them answered to the best of our ability. So the documentary shorts program, the Frontera Filmmakers, is usually one program per year. But in the last couple of years, we've had like a huge amount of high quality content from our area, and it's just kind of caused us to have to split it up into documentaries and narratives just because of how much films there are, and which is I think is exciting for the filmmakers here, and also exciting for anybody who loves film in San Diego and Tijuana, right? But you guys are all here to hear from them, not from me. So let me bring them all up. Wait, quick. Hi, how's everybody doing today?
Hey there.
Good, thanks.
Hello.
I think that was it, right? Yeah. Sorry, I thought that was someone else. So really quickly, why don't you all tell us where you're calling from? I know people are calling from different areas. One of the great things about doing virtual is anybody can call from wherever, right? Entonces, we'll start with you, Noemi and Shara. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name.
Perfect. We're calling in right now from the Bay Area, which is where I live. Noemi lives in San Diego. And we were there last week for the premiere.
Awesome. Thank you. How about you, Emily?
I'm calling in from New York, where I'm based, but I am from California, and I do love San Diego.
Awesome. Well, what about you, Rafa? And we'll just go down the line.
I'm calling straight from East Oakland, California, but by way of Seattle and San Isidro.
Awesome.
I'm calling from San Diego, but I'm originally from Canada.
Okay. I didn't know that, James.
Why we're so nice.
Yeah. How about you, Sebastian?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm calling from Santiago, Chile, down here in the Southern Cone. Hi everybody.
And I'm calling from Ocean Beach in San Diego.
And we are live from the Burrito Lounge in Chula Vista, but I'm originally from Medellin, but I grew up in Queens, New York.
Awesome. Well, to start off really quickly, I want you to kind of give us an overview of why you chose the topic you did, or why you were called to tell this story. And yeah, we can just kind of start with Noemi, and we'll go down the line again. With Noemi and Shara, sorry.
Yeah, so that's like a really big question. But I was called to tell the story. My family's from El Salvador, and my dad came during the war, escaping the war. And then I was called to the path of birth work and got in touch with midwives in El Salvador and started to learn about their story. And it's just so unique and so powerful. So I got in touch with Shara and we collaborated to make this film, Matrona.
Yeah, we're cousins. I'm a filmmaker, and I had been interested in the topic of birthing justice for several years once I kind of started going through very vastly different experiences with giving birth in the U.S. and realizing how much disempowerment exists in the hospital system and how little this is talked about, at least in the circle that I was in at the time. And so it was something that I was already curious about, and once I was there working with the Fronteras in El Salvador, it just seemed like a perfect opportunity to learn more and to dive in. And we set out there thinking we would make a little short 5-minute piece or something about the Fronteras that she's working with, and realize the story is just much deeper, and there's so much going on.
Awesome, thank you. Oh, yeah, Emily.
So my film is about Friendship Park, or El Parque de la Amistad, which is right in Tijuana and San Diego. It's a really unique place where people can gather on both sides of the border. It's a really important cultural asset for the community, especially people whose families are of mixed status. It's the only place along the U.S.-Mexico border where people can gather, and it's under really incredibly oppressive surveillance, and has been for a long time. I've actually made a feature-length film about this place, but I've been working with a local advocacy group called the Friends of Friendship Park, who are the advocates for access to the place, and they found this incredible vintage footage from when Pat Nixon inaugurated the space. So we wanted to sort of use that footage to frame the hypocrisy of the executive branch's use over this space, and the sort of story that the executive branch and the sort of federal government tells about us and our communities and the border through their language and through their use of this place. So we thought, especially with the 50th anniversary of the park coming up this year, that we would take a look back to see what was it like when it started, what was the intention, and how do we hold especially those white women in power like Pat Nixon, who the piece centers around, to their promises.
Awesome, thank you. How about you, Rafael? We'll go down the line with James and Sebastian.
Yeah, my film is titled A Mi Matria. It's a short film. What inspired me to make it was my relationship with my grandmother, who was a part of a generation of Mexican Chicanos who were unconstitutionally deported during the 1920s during the Mexican American Repatriation Act. And so the story is about me visiting her in Tijuana and taking her back to her place of birth 85 years after not returning back to her homeland where she was born, which was in Newport Beach, California, and where she grew up in a small town called Terracota. And and her experience, just living in exile, essentially, of the United States. So it's a historical documentary, personal documentary. I guess that's my motivation. But I collaborated with Juan Felipe Herrera and Rigoberto Gonzalez, who are two very famous Chicano poets, to do the voiceover and poetic kind of interludes in the film. So, and the film actually premiered at Cannes in 2017 in France. So it's great to bring it back home, back to San Diego, where she was from, because she actually died since the film has been produced. And so, the film actually premiered at the South Bay Drive-In, which is part of a flea market that she used to go to actually all the time. So she lived in that area. So it's good to be part of the festival. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Your grandma seems awesome. I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
So sorry, Rafael, for your loss. It was great to go down to South Bay Drive-In to see our films because that's really where the border industrial complex exists. And it's for Sebastian and myself. We've been longtime filmmakers and documentarians in international affairs, and we'd worked for different governments doing public education campaigns and government consulting. And what we kept seeing was we were private contractors. We saw so many other more nefarious private contractors, the Core Civics, formerly Corrections Corporation of America, or just as a Geo Group, warehousing immigrants. And we really wanted to speak to the privatization and the increasing outsourcing of what has been traditionally an inherently sovereign function, immigration policy, that's now being co-opted and outsourced to for-profit corporations. So that was really the impetus for us. Sebastian, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, basically, the borders are a special part of the world. We've been lucky with Jeremy to travel along many borders and many different borders, many different experiences, and at the same time, they also have something in common. No, people both sides of the border, trying to get in, trying to get out. Desperation. Very hardship. So I think raising the issue of a border industrial complex and what is all behind the scenes, it's also something important to get it out there.
Oh, did you say something, Juan?
I was like, yeah. How about you, David?
Oh,
Sorry. I have a
okay.
mic.
Yeah.
That was
That's what I
been a
thought,
year
but I
and
didn't want to
I used
assume.
it.
Hi, everybody. My name is David. I'm one of the directors of Dia de las Madres, which is a film about my co-director's uncle and grandmother. It's actually one of a series of films that we're making about different members of Moises's family. Many of them live in California, and then many of them live in Jalisco, which is where the family's originally from. And there are kind of like different like situations for each of Moy's uncles. Two of them are currently undocumented. One of his uncles has a green card. And we're trying to create a series of films about each of their relationships with their mom. And this one focuses on an uncle who we're calling Eddie in the film to help protect his identity. And it's kind of all shot in one day. Half of it is in Mexico and then half of it's in the United States, but it's all happening at the same time. And I think like the main function of this series is to help Moy kind of like process his role and his responsibility in his family as someone who can travel back and forth across the border with total freedom. He has had that privilege for his whole life and has grown up watching members of his family who haven't been able to return to Mexico for decades. And so this film that we've made is we're trying to reunite people on screen who haven't seen each other for a very long time. So that's why we're making it.
Thank you, David. How are you, Luis?
Hey, so everybody I think that has Latino roots has members of their family, or at least Latin American, Central American, Mexican American families always have that part of the family that goes to the United States, and depending on what side of a imaginary line you were born on, it might depend how you get treated or what kind of rights you have. So one of my longtime collaborators, Oscar Velasquez, he's a brilliant DP. He's the main reason that my movies look the way they do because he's awesome with what he does. He happens to be part of the Dreamers, part of the DACA program. So this guy's like an incredible artist, but he seriously, since the film world is such a crazy place, and if you're part of DACA, you have to keep a job that's consistent. You pay unemployment insurance, but you can't collect unemployment, and you basically live with a giant piano over your head at all times. So he was seriously considering giving up on being a filmmaker because of this this thing, right? So we wanted to make something that was about immigration, about people in the program, because a lot of it's based on like the struggles getting across, the people at the border, a lot of stuff. But there's also people that are here, and that by the luck, they just don't happen to have, or they have a murky status. So we wanted to just kind of spotlight him because he's an important person in my production team. And it's just a little bit about how he feels like an American, and he's like it's cliche, but dreaming from the shadows, so to speak. The American dream, but not really fulfilled. And thankfully, we're in a place now where he feels a little bit more confident about his position, because part of what we talked about earlier is that we didn't. If the movie would have been out a year and a half ago, it would have been different because I don't think he would have been mentally. Maybe he would have been a little bit more challenged by the fact that we were in a time where he would have felt like there could have been retribution or things like that. So it probably was a story that could have been told a little bit better a year and a half ago, but it's important that he's getting that now and he's more confident in being able to speak up about the people that are in that situation and kind of their struggles.
Awesome, thank you. I think documentary filmmakers are a special type of filmmaker, just because in a way you're record keepers of our history, of what's happening at a certain point in time or what happened. So I think in 40 or 50 years, people will be like, oh, that used to happen back then. Oh wow, that still happens and it used to happen back then. So I think what I want to ask is how do you feel as a documentary filmmaker that what the story you're telling is something that possibly won't change or anytime soon, or are you hoping that your story will help kind of push that social issue to a change, or kind of open the eyes of somebody that's in a position to make a change? We'll start with Luis and then go backwards.
I guess that's kind of what I was talking about in terms of like the retribution or possible anger caused by me telling a story about somebody and just being, and then somebody looking at that story and saying, I don't like that he's here. I don't I'm gonna call somebody, or something like that. So it always I did have that exact thought about, am I doing this just because I want to make a doc, and I think, am I exploiting him to do something that gets me some views or something, or gets us into a festival, or will somebody be able to take a look at this and sort of think twice, so I guess that was my goal, that somebody would watch the film and see and just take a look around them and realize that some of the people that they interact with that are important parts of their lives, that create the content that they like, they might not all have like a valid driver's license. They might not all have like they might get really, really nervous when they're driving and there's a cop behind them. They're living, like I said, just that at any moment, like you said, you could be sent somewhere that you don't know. You could be taken from, you might live your life as an American day by day, every day, like acting, thinking, being whatever you consider an American. And then all of a sudden say, no, we're just deciding that it's not. So I would hope that based on the topic that we're in, and based on the change in administrations and the things that are being said, that hopefully my movie will be obsolete within the next 5 years. And we'll be moving on to more like just people being people and imaginary lines being imaginary.
Awesome, thank you.
Moy and I actually had a really long conversation about this just yesterday, because I think we're both pretty like discouraged about the film having any like real impact, because like you kind of go into things not really feeling like a film that you make is going to have an impact on policy. Like, we're not going to like change people's prejudice or like change the law with a movie that we make, but maybe we could do something. I think we were both hoping like maybe we could use this art to get like an immigration lawyer interested, or something like that. And we're kind of both like, well, dang, maybe we can't even do that with this film. And actually just yesterday we decided, we had been trying to like figure out whether we wanted to pursue some sort of distribution after our festival run. And we kind of decided that we weren't going to do that just because we didn't feel like the film was bringing any resources to our character. And we definitely felt like it would bring risk to them if we were to like take it outside of this supportive community. So that it's kind of like a fresh conversation. But yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Thank you. And I think for you, Rafael, your film is more of a warning of what could happen if we're not aware of our own history, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely part of it. But I mean, I think that at large, what informs my whole practice and what I teach and what I what I do with my cinematic career is, in fact, advocate for the fact that, yes, cinema is a tool for social change. And in fact, it is a very strong one. And I have been fortunate enough in the work that I do with the nonprofits and with a lot of youth development programs here in Oakland, but also just with my program, The Hidden Gem. We in multiple cities, I would say, like in Seattle, Oakland, San Francisco, LA, and hopefully soon San Diego, we have conducted huge amounts of research and influenced public policy to a great amount, I would say. And really, that's through the support of the work that I do with the California Endowment and a lot of foundations in California, because we're actually very well positioned here in California to do that. I don't believe in art for art's sake. I mean, for me, if it doesn't try to influence policy or try to improve the living and working conditions of oppressed people of color, then I'm not really interested in not doing it, right? And I think that that's what my whole production company and the programs that I run are all dedicated to, and the subject matter is in fact about that as well. And I think that this film is just one example of it that's very personal, but I believe that my gun shoots 24 frames per second, not 16 rounds, right? That's been my mantra, right? And that's because of the people I work with, right, who are experiencing that directly, and providing opportunities for them, because they would otherwise not have an opportunity to tell their story, because that's where the real stories are, and those are the people that should be telling it, right? So for me, like, that's central to like my whole practice and philosophy as a filmmaker and what I believe in. But my grandmother's film is definitely a cautionary tale in terms of what could happen and what I firmly believe will happen if we continue down the path that we are politically in this country. And I think Latinos, period, need to unite because we have a strong voice and we need to be more represented. I mean, the fact that UCLA study recently that just came out said that we were 0.9% of the film and TV working industry, like population, 0.9% in 2019. That is absolutely unacceptable, and that has to change immediately. And I thank all of you for being part of this festival so that we can collectively say that together.
Thank you.
We approach this. It was interesting to hear David say, hoping to get an immigration lawyer interested. I'm the associate dean at California Western School of Law in San Diego. So send me your films and I'll send them to lawyers to be. Because over the last almost 25 years, and I've been working with Sebastian 18 or 19 of them now, 19 of them now, we have used our films as curriculum, as a form of education. And I honestly believe, and I use the old rabbinical expression, tikkun olam, to heal oneself or to heal one person is to heal the world. And I really believe that, and I come as with the luxury of being an academician and getting a regular paycheck, thankfully. And I salute all of you for the amazing work and works that you do each and every day, because it's got to be grinding. And I'm so thrilled to hear Raphael's funded by the California Endowment and so many. And I encourage you, there's money out there to do this kind of stuff. We've been able to self-fund it through grants ourselves and through different donations. But I do want to encourage all of you to don't give up. And I always think, if I impact one law student to do something differently, he, she, or they are going to have thousands of clients in their lifetime, and that's going to affect thousands of people. So yeah, let's talk to that immigration lawyer and get your work to change his or their mind. But also, how about 300 at a time? So I'll hand it to my collaborator Sebastian to take it from his perspective.
Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, I totally agree that for me it's also to bring these topics into everybody's or more people that can know about these things, the better. In our film, it's clear how there's a whole huge industry, $1 billion industry behind all these border issues, and that's a huge thing. That's people are benefiting from these situations that are probably one of the hardest things and someone can go through, going from your home and the uncertainty. So I would say also the awareness and trying to make shout these things out. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Sebastian and James. How about you, Noemi and Shara?
Well, with Matronas, we had several goals. The first being to document the story of the midwives in the film. They have such a unique history and such an incredible story. And the second goal being to help them change the situation, because they are facing criminalization to such an extreme degree right now, and that endangers all of the women and the not just the women but the entire communities that they serve. So having this film be useful for achieving real change was a very important goal as well. And then thirdly, to the kind of tertiary goal, like, can this be helpful in swaying the conversation more generally, more universally, around how do we as a society look at birth? How do we treat women during that process? It says a lot about the society, and it's so important. So yeah, those were definitely, the hope is that the film can be helpful in achieving some on the ground change. And you want to share a little bit about what's happening with that?
Yeah, so in the film, you get to see them at a national conference that we had in 2019, where they wrote a declaration to make parteria considered a cultural patrimony in El Salvador. And so in 2019, they submitted that proposal to the government. And the government is just now finally getting back to them and saying that they're looking at it. And there are some people in government who are in agreement. And so that conversation is sort of happening right now. So timing wise, we're really hopeful that this documentary will be helpful to them in these meetings that they're having with government officials right now. And they just had another encuentro like two weeks ago, I think. And they played the documentary there for the people who were present. So that's really was the point of it, for it to be useful for them, and also just to be a homage to everything that they do for our community.
Awesome. Thank you. I think the next question I want to ask is regarding your process when working with your documentary subjects, because they're not professional actors, right? They're regular people like me and you, and maybe, I don't know, for me, getting a camera in front of me, I freeze. I'm like turning into like a deer in headlights in front of headlights. So I don't know if what was your process to kind of get them comfortable with the camera in them, and how that was. Whoever wants to take it first, and or I'll call on someone.
I can go.
Okay.
I think our process was to really have it be, and I'm sure many of you can relate to this, if not all of you, to really have it be a community-based project. So to really build those relationships and that trust. And I spent, the entire year that we were filming, living with the parteras and working with them. And so just really, building that relationship of trust, and making sure that we have also showed them all the versions of it, and just, making sure that this is what they want out there as a representation of their story. I think that helped make them comfortable, I hope.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been possible for this subject any other way, because what they were sharing about was so could be something that could feel dangerous, and I don't think they only because you were part of the community would they have trusted speaking with us. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else?
As academicians, we actually started with a conference. So again, we approach it, very differently. But as in the editing studio, we always start with a song. We edit as if we were doing a rock video or a reggaeton video, minus the misogyny, and we build out from that, and that's been the process, Sebastian, for 19 years.
Yeah, you're right. That's a process, and basically our this movie, this documentary is about lots of different testimonies and mainly academics, and so the way we approach them is basically where we can somehow, and try to make the best of it on a on a university, or somewhere in the street, or in an office, or so. I guess that's also part of being flexible and with your equipment, and try to set it up fast and get a good shot.
For our film, I think it was totally just a family thing. Moy has been the camera kid in his family probably for like the past 10-15 years, and so they're all used to him filming them all the time. And he just recently, like within the past 3 years, started turning that into like dedicated work that edited together and told stories over long periods of time. But they all trust him completely, and I think as his friend, they just kind of extended that trust to me as well, based on their love for him. I think it also helped that it was all verite, so nobody had to give interviews or anything. We just kind of like filmed.
For us, it came down to the fact that we had a 5-person crew, and Oscar was not only the subject of the documentary, but he was also the DP on it. So he had to frame himself up, and he was very uncomfortable in front of the cameras. And I'm just learning documentary film. Most of my work has been narrative. So I realized that to make a documentary and to not kind of, I guess, what's the theory that once you're filming somebody, you've changed them, right? Or you change how they act. So I'm just kind of learning as I go in terms of how to conduct those interviews. But for me, it was trying to talk him through the conversation, just start him off with something that I thought might be interesting to say, and just let him expand on it. And then Andy Dukleth, the editor who works at KPBS, she was the one that really found the story in the edit. And she has a news background, so she was basically to catch me rambling and catch Oscar rambling, and she was able to kind of come back to me and say, this is kind of where I think the story is from all that. So for me, for this particular project, it was really trusting the editor and then trying to stay out of their way, and just let people that do something better than you do it better.
Yeah.
For me, my grandmother, she was natural in front of the camera. I would tell her, I'm going to make you a movie star, and she would just play for the camera, So it was, she was naturally charismatic. So I was blessed and fortunate, to just have, somebody be like that for my documentary subject. I think that's something I always consider when I decided to do a project. But I was, just happened to be my family member. So there was naturally an ambiente muy cómodo, like where you feel very comfortable, and you're able to, converse, and you want that naturally, because the way that I direct a documentary interview would be the same way I would direct a narrative sequence, right, with somebody. I would make sure that I'm going to still get that performance and watch emotional cues, and you have to very much think on your toes. You can come as prepared as you want, but you don't know what that person is going to say. Luckily, like many people, my grandmother told me stories millions of times, right? And they change every time, they tell it. So, that was probably the more challenging thing. But I think what was more interesting about my creative process, besides, developing questions and outlines and boring stuff, is I think because that's definitely an academic. I agree with James and Sebastian. Like it is an academic approach, and it is helpful. It's very helpful, but sometimes things don't go according to that plan. And I don't think I would have been able to do it without the support, really, of the community helping me come down and film. In Tijuana, come down to San Diego, meet my family, eat tamales, have chile negro. Like have the experience and cross the frontera and film while we're doing that. I think without that support and that community, which has really been the focus of most of my films and the way that I get most of my films done creatively with little resources, very rascuache, that is the way that I would get the productions done. And without that, I don't think, the project would have happened. And so I think that's what the unique kind of creative aspect in terms of, getting people to work together and get on board with your ship is, and I think that was the thing to learn from that experience.
Thank you. I think this one's gonna be more of a simple answer. But I think all of you have varying degrees of how long this project took. So I want to kind of hear about that. Was it like maybe a 1-day shoot? Maybe it was. Well, I think David's. I think yours was. But how much of that time was it like pre-planning and post-planning? So like just the timeline of what the project looked like from beginning to end. And whoever wants to go first.
Can jump in. Yeah, we did 1-day shoot. There was a little more pre-planning because Moy traveled to Jalisco. So he was there for like the week before because they went down to hang out with his grandma for the whole week before Mother's Day. And then I like had to drive to the location and rent some gear to shoot. So with that, like pre-production was probably like 2 days. And then we edited, like it was actually a really fast edit. It came together in a week. And we did all the color and sound in a week as well.
I'll jump in next. My film was crazy because, my dad had been sending me pictures of my grandmother from the 1920s during the repatriation, and he's like prodding me to make the movie, and, he teaches ethnic studies, and so he's like, oh, historian, right? So I'm like, okay, Dad, I'll make the movie. I've been filming interviews with the family, slowly collecting, right? But it wasn't until I really started focusing on my grandmother that I started I captured, I think about in maybe 4 days we filmed, on our way down there, in the car, in San Diego, in Tijuana, in Newport Beach, in Terracota. And so it was like 4 or 5 days that we shot in each one of those locations. And then I put it on a shelf for 6 years. And then my nana, my abuela told me, oh, me voy a morir, no sé qué, I'm like, oh, trying to guilt trip me, and I said, God, I better like finish this. So one time, I had spring break from teaching classes, and I said, okay, let me just drive down to San Isidro and go lock myself in a room, and I'll eat her tamales or her enchiladas or whatever she's making, right? And I'll just finish the film as quickly as possible, right? And so I did it in about 2 or 3 days with a bottle of whiskey and a bunch of tamales, and I got it done, and I showed it to her. And gracias a Dios, she can rest in peace, because she saw her life on screen, and, so that's my story about how long it took me. And it's not by choice, but it's been touring for about 3 years, and it's on its last leg now. So I'm glad again that it's here with you guys. So I'll be quiet now.
Thank you, Rafael.
We have a difficult process because we live in completely different hemispheres, or continents, I should say. Rather, we're in the Americas. So when we get together, if I get to teach in Chile, we used to run a summer program there, which brought law students down. And so I'd be there for 14 days. And we'd just edit. The moment I got there to the moment I left, we would edit together. And then Sebastian would come up and film in San Diego, and we'd do a quick trip to the Bay Area if we were lucky, or to Los Angeles to get other footage on different projects. And sometimes we're doing 2 or 3 projects at the same time, or we would edit. We once edited in Taiwan because we were doing a project there, so we edited, and we planned different things along the way so that we would maximize the resources. And the one resource, and you whippersnappers will see this in 30 years, that time is actually, it's not money, it's time. And we really wanted to maximize, we're both in our 50s, we have families, so you can't be away for that long. So I really envy all of you to have the ability to do these labors of love and to take your time and make them artistic.
Let me, because I actually have to go. So let me. My answer is really quick. We did it for the worst possible reason that you can make a movie, because there was a competition and a deadline coming up. So it was literally like last year's Migrant Voices Challenge when I was like, oh, Oscar, do you want to? I just have this idea, man. What if we just kind of have you talk a little bit? There's this thing, and it's about people that are the migrants right now. And he was apprehensive at first, but then he said, yeah. So we got him, me, Andy, the editor, a makeup artist, and my friend Kurt, who did the music. And it was a turnaround of probably a week. But it didn't get into the festival because it needed a little bit more work. We worked on it a little bit more, put it on the shelf, and then decided to submit it for the docs program. I love documentaries. This is my first one, and I wanna spend the next kind of part of my career probably doing a couple. So for me, it's really awesome because I saw all your movies and they're all really, really good. So I'm humbled that I get to kind of be on a panel with you guys, and I'm just trying to absorb it. And I learned from hearing from you guys and Rafa and other guys earlier. And all you guys did awesome movies. So I just wanted to tell you guys that it's an honor to be on a panel and part of a block with some really like incredible filmmakers, and that's like my favorite part of this festival. And you're all invited to come on the recap stream later on. I sent you my email, and I hope I get to talk to you guys and see how your careers progress and just catch up on and binge your entire film history.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you for joining us.
Take it easy, guys. I'll be watching the rest of it.
In our case, filming was I joined Noe in El Salvador 2 separate occasions for about 2 weeks each time. Part of that was spending time with family and hanging out, and then about a week or so of filming in each of those trips. And then the editing process was pretty intensive, and I'm super grateful that we took as much time as we did. We had about a year, right? A little bit more. And that was, this was also a first time for both of us making a documentary. My background is in doing like mostly commercial or very short form corporate documentary, which I don't count as documentary at all, types of projects. So this was, yeah, really, it was very intensive process for us because we had so much interview content, probably about 30 hours worth in total. So we went through that with like multiple times thoroughly and just, to figured out what is important here, and then started organizing it. And then from there outlining what is the story that we need to tell.
Yeah, and this was my first time being part of any film, and when we were watching all the interviews and deciding what's the best part and where should we put it, I love writing, and I was like, oh my god, this is just like writing an essay. Like, this is so cool.
I feel like it's very much like writing or like a puzzle. Sometimes I feel like we hit a certain point where it's like we're just kind of finding the right pieces, but the puzzle is already there somehow. And my little brother did the music for it, and that was an amazing experience that brought it all to life in a whole new way. But yeah, it was about a year, a little over a year in total.
I'm glad you asked about, you mentioned that it's like a puzzle, because the next question I wanted to ask, this is going to be the last one because I think we're close to an hour already. Just kind of, at what point do you feel you're done with the film? Like, at what point are you like, okay, I need to put this out there. I shouldn't look at it anymore, because I think you probably all kind of want to go back to it again and again and kind of make sure that it's perfect. But when do you decide that it's time for it to be out into the world?
In our case, we have you to thank for that, because truly it was getting into San Diego Latino Film Festival that we were like, oh my God, well, we have to be done then. And I feel like we could have gone on forever editing it. So I just don't know the right answer to that question, because it's very hard for me to call something finished. I feel like there's endless things I want to keep experimenting with and playing with further, but obviously nothing would ever get out the door if we take that approach. So I'm grateful, because this was something that we had, something to work toward and a deadline, and that's why we were able to call it finished.
And thank you for your patience.
Yes, you guys have been amazing.
No, of course.
Super curious to hear how others, approach that process, because that's a hard one for me.
I think for me, it varies on the project. Like for client work, usually it's done on like the first cut, in my opinion. And then they're like, oh, wait, what about this. And like in contracts, there's always like 2 client revisions, at least at the company that I work at. And so it feels like it's done, and then it goes through 2 passes, and then it's actually much better at the end of all that most of the time. But then for like this Dia de las Madres was just a passion project, and those they're usually like in one of 2 directions. Either you just get it out and it feels like it just rolls off the press like ready, or you agonize over it for way longer than you should. I think with Dia, like it happened a lot faster than it normally does. And looking at the film now, I'm like, oh man, there are some things that we could clean up. But yeah, like that's kind of unusual. So I think for this one, like the structure was clear, which really helped a lot. And that sped things up.
For us, I think, for me personally, I think there's always somewhere you can change something, or there's always, every time I see old things, I say, that needs another, second here, or the music here. There's always something, so you have to learn to let it go somehow. But in this particular movie, for us, it's we edit when we can on the way, as Jamie said, when we get together a week or 2 here in Santiago, or another 2 weeks in San Diego. So we have to kind of discover the story through the interviews we do in different parts, in the different people. So it's a big brainstorming process for us, but at the same time, it's, as you say, it's a puzzle, and you put the pieces together and it makes sense. Somehow sometimes it makes sense, and then you start pulling things here and up and making it nicer and better and funnier. But there's a point where, for myself, I think it makes sense. When it makes sense, that's a story there, at least the storyline. Then there's extra thing you put on top, so it's nicer. Yeah, that's my process.
I didn't know we were done. Wait a second. What, we're done? I've been working on a book on the same subject for 11 years, and I hope this conversation kicks me in the butt a little, and we'll get done soon.
For me, with this particular one, the way I knew I was done was when I showed it to my grandmother and she approved it, so that was like, oh, okay, she likes it. Okay, I'm good, because that's all I really cared. That's the person I made the film for, but I think with other documentaries, it's very common for me to spend anywhere from 6, 7, sometimes 10 years working on a project, to be honest with you. It just depends if you get the story and the footage that you need. Sometimes you need stock footage that needs to be cleared. And then what I've learned over the years, as some of my other more recent projects have been gotten distribution deals and things like that, is that when you're going through QC, quality control, right, there's always something that you forgot to do and that you have to revise. So even when you think you're done, there's always something that's preventing you from actually being finished, right, and actually putting it out there the way it should be. And so I guess that's my plug to say that I hope all of your films, including mine, all get distribution so that we can get to larger audiences, so that we can be recognized for our stories and change that and improve that representation. So
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I like asking that question because I think a lot of filmmakers feel like they can do something, and I think like when filmmakers go and change something back in a film that they made and the audience sees it, they all kind of get riled up. Because I think once you put it out there, I think the audience feels like it's theirs. So now it's not. You like gave up your film. It's theirs now. Not the filmmakers anymore. So I kind of like asking to hear what people have to say about that. But thank you so much for participating in the Q&A. Thank you so much for submitting to the festival and allow us to screen your film. We're so glad and proud to have shared this work with our audiences. And thank you for participating today. And we hope to see you back with more films, more shorts, or maybe a feature length stuff in the future.
Thank you, Juan, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you, everyone.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Meet
Thank
you.
you.
take care, everybody. Thank you.
Have a good week.
Stay safe.